Imagine a country that just overthrew its king, executed him, tried democracy, tried radical revolution, and somehow ended up ruled by a 30-year-old artillery officer from an island most French people couldn't even point to on a map. That officer was Napoleon Bonaparte, and the way he took power in France wasn't just dramatic, it was almost surgical. To understand Napoleon's rise, you have to understand France in the 1790s. The French Revolution had destroyed the old monarchy. King Louis XVI was executed. The country tried radical republican government. That led to the infamous Reign of Terror. Thousands were executed. Politics became extremely hazardous. Eventually, the revolution settled into a government called the Directory. And settled might be the generous word. The Directory was corrupt, unpopular, and constantly on the edge of collapse. France didn't trust its politicians, but it did trust one thing: successful generals. This is where Napoleon Bonaparte enters the story. And he didn't come from the kind of background you would normally expect for someone who would one day rule France. He wasn't born into powerful French aristocracy. He wasn't part of the political elite in Paris. In fact, he was born on the island of Corsica, which had only recently become part of France. To many people in mainland France, Corsica still felt like a distant and unfamiliar place. Napoleon grew up speaking Italian and Corsican before he fully mastered French. His accent was noticeable. His background was outsider, and early in his career, many people in Paris didn't take him particularly seriously. But Napoleon had something that France desperately needed: victory. He had been trained as an artillery officer, which at the time was one of the most technical and respected roles in the army. Unlike many officers from noble families, Napoleon relied heavily on mathematics, planning, and careful battlefield positioning. His first major opportunity came during the Revolutionary Wars, when France was fighting multiple European monarchies that were trying to crush the revolution. Napoleon first gained attention during the siege of Toulon in 1793. There, his artillery strategy helped French forces retake the city from royalists and their British allies. The victory caught the attention of powerful figures in the revolutionary government, and at just 24 years old, Napoleon was promoted to brigadier general. But his real breakthrough came a few years later. In 1796, the government gave him command of the French army of Italy. At the time, this army was poorly supplied, underpaid, and not expected to accomplish very much. Most of France's military focus was on defending its borders. Italy was considered a secondary front. Napoleon saw it very differently. During the Italian campaign of 1796 to 1797, he completely transformed the situation. Instead of slow and predictable movements, Napoleon relied on speed. He divided enemy armies, struck quickly, and forced them into a series of rapid defeats. Again and again, he attacked opponents who were larger and supposedly stronger, and again he won. His victories against Austrian forces shocked the rest of Europe. Within a year, Napoleon had driven Austria out of much of northern Italy and forced them to negotiate peace. For the first time, France had a general who wasn't just defending the revolution, he was expanding its influence. Napoleon also understood something many generals ignored. War wasn't just fought on battlefields, it was fought in public opinion. He wrote dramatic reports of his victories. He made sure newspapers in Paris celebrated his successes. He carefully crafted the image of a brilliant young commander leading France to glory. Suddenly, this young general wasn't just a soldier. He was a national hero. And in a country that had grown deeply distrustful of politicians, a successful general was becoming the most powerful figure of all. By the late 1790s, France had a strange situation. The politicians technically ran the government, but the generals had the popularity, and one general in particular had a lot of ambition. Napoleon returned to France in 1799 after his campaign in Egypt. The Directory was weaker than ever. Economic problems, political infighting, constant instability. Many French leaders were quietly asking a dangerous question. What if a strong leader simply took control? Napoleon was very happy to help answer that question. In November 1799, Napoleon carried out one of the most famous political takeovers in European history. The event is known as the Coup of 18 Brumaire, and despite the dramatic name, it wasn't exactly a perfectly executed plan. Napoleon and his allies convinced lawmakers to move the government outside Paris, officially for safety, unofficially so they could control the situation. When the politicians realized what was happening, chaos broke out. Some lawmakers shouted that Napoleon was becoming a dictator. Others tried to physically block him. At one point, Napoleon himself almost lost control of the room. But his brother, Lucien Bonaparte, stepped in. He told soldiers the politicians were threatening Napoleon. The troops cleared the assembly, and just like that, the old government was gone. After the coup, France didn't technically become a dictatorship, at least not on paper. Instead, it created a new government called the Consulate, and at the top was a position called First Consul. Guess who got the job? Napoleon Bonaparte. Officially, there were 3 consuls. In reality, Napoleon held almost all the power. He controlled the military, he controlled the government, and increasingly, he controlled the future of France. Once Napoleon had power, he moved quickly to stabilize the country. He reorganized the government, repaired the economy, created legal reforms like the famous Napoleonic Code. France, after years of chaos, finally had stability, and the public liked it very much. So much that, in 1804, Napoleon took the next step. He crowned himself emperor. The event became known as the coronation of Napoleon, and in a moment that perfectly captured his personality, Napoleon took the crown and placed it on his own head. No king, no pope, just himself. Napoleon didn't take power simply because he wanted it. He took power because France was exhausted. After revolution, terror, and political instability, people were willing to trade some democracy for stability. Napoleon understood that perfectly. He didn't destroy the revolution, he used it. And in doing so, a young artillery officer from Corsica became one of the most powerful leaders Europe had ever seen. Of course, holding power would turn out to be a lot harder than taking it, but that's another story.